There we are. Faustiest witch of them all, are you there?
I am here.
Good. What we're chatting about this week on the Fausty Witches Show.
How to spot a Satanist.
How do you spot a Satanist? Do they have a lot of black capes with hoods and the black candles? Or
Not
is it
until
more
after
complicated
bedtime.
than that?
Not until after bedtime. That's the only time
Not
I've
until
ever seen a
after
Satanist in a
bedtime.
cape.
What type of Satanist are you going to spot? Because you know, like you have bird watchers and they've got the little book that tells them, is it a blue tit? Is it a hawk? What is it? How many different types of Satanists are there nowadays? There are quite a lot in there.
Yeah, there's a fair few, really.
Up?
No, the ones that you'll most commonly see and are easy to spot are the ones that obviously have got their inverted pentagrams on and their Doc Martens and their, what are they called? New Rocks.
And what sort of Satanists are there? Because you get the Satanists that are atheists and it's just a political thing. And then you get the ones that actually are more like Luciferian. They do believe in some sort of, devil. And then you kind of got the people that are, well...
Like the look.
I don't know. Like, would you even consider some traditional witches that like to muck about with the old folk devil down at the crossroads? I wouldn't class that as a Satanist.
No,
but I
that's not
Satanism. Would, So,
yeah, a Christian would. Well, a Christian would see anything that doesn't have a cross the right way up as being Satanist. So,
well, I don't know. I think they just assume that everything that is in Christianity is Satanists, and sometimes I think a lot of them even think they are Christians, just not their right sort of Christians. They're also probably Satanists. I did get told by a Christian that, oh, you might work with Jesus, but it's the wrong Jesus. That got me thinking, oh, that's really interesting. I don't know whether they meant it that way, but that's certainly the way I took it, as like the American Gods Netflix show.
Yeah. I was thinking that when you said that.
But yeah,
which is true to a certain extent. You'll have different faces of Jesus because it'll, like any good spirit, it'll appear in the method that suits you most, whether or not that's the same entity or if that's several entities that work on, an alternate day rota. I'm not sure.
So
I've not worked with Jesus enough myself.
What do I need to do to download and get Chinese Jesus? Do I need to download the right expansion pack, like with the old Sims game?
I think so.
Or is it more complicated? You just download the right expansion pack?
I think so. I think you need to have gone to the right church. And each church has a code, and then you input the code, and the secret code allows the download.
Okay.
So I'm pretty sure that's how it works.
Theme. So you change Jesus' desktop theme, and he might be Chinese Jesus.
like we did in the 90s, where you would constantly have to update with the latest picture from Buffy, or whatever it was at the time.
Yeah, and then I suppose the old Satan, the old devil, and all that. That's the same. Can I change the desktop theme on that as well?
Yeah, of course you can.
What do I need to do? Can I say Baphomet 3 times and then it appears in the Baphomet form?
Possibly.
Baphomet, and then she does appear.
I do love that Baphomet. I really do. Well, I'm surprised we don't sell a lot more of those.
Or I come back. I do like this statue, actually. It's from the shop. It's the only one we've got left. Not statues. It's the only Baphomet statue we've got, the bronze cast. But is it a he or is it a she? Because she's got boobs there.
It's a man.
Well, some would say that it's somewhere in between.
I'm not sure the devil.
Eliphas Levi, wasn't it? I can never say his name properly. From the old Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. Some say it's a bastardization of Muhammad, but we can't talk about that because we might get into trouble.
Yeah, I'm not up on my theology enough on the Quran recently to even answer that.
Let's talk about let's talk about Satanism then. So, if anyone's got any comments or any questions or anything like that, then obviously leave the comments because they should pop up on the screen, hopefully, fingers crossed. Assuming that the old Satan or Madam Satan, is it Madam Satan, like off of Chilling Adventure, Sabrina? Yeah, might stop the comments from coming up. So if we skip your comment, don't blame us, blame Madam Satan, because she's the current desktop theme.
So yeah.
Okay.
Where do you want to start?
Anton LaVey type Satanism, because he was the man, you know, that.
So dressing up as Satan and holding parties.
To do the parties, official Church of Satan kind of thing. Was more politics, I think, wasn't it? It seems to me, from an outsider, because I'm not a Satanist, it seems to me that it's a lot of rather upset Catholics, rather upset former Catholics.
Yeah, there's a lot of it is anti-church, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not necessarily anti-Christian, but anti-organized religion.
Yeah, they do a lot of campaigning and such. So if in America, I know they've done a lot of work where someone wanted to put the commandments as a statue up, and they said, well, under religious freedom, if you have that commandment statue, we should be able to put a Baphomet statue up, and then the whole thing got dropped. So it's kind of seen as that kind of thing. It's a case of, well, wait a minute, what are these people scared of the most? They're kind of scared of Richard Dawkins, but they're more scared of Satan than Richard Dawkins. So instead of putting a Richard Dawkins statue up, let's put the old Satan or put the Baphomet statue up. But yeah, what about the other type though? I don't know whether it's less popular or more popular, because there's
the Luciferians.
There's the Church of Satan, and then there's the Universal Church of Satan, and then there is the Temple of Satan, and all that kind of stuff. There's lots of different.
And then there's similar ones, aren't there? Like the Temple of Set, which suggests that that's a earlier than Satan kind of lineagey thing.
But the Luciferian type, so the ones that might actually believe in the devil.
But obviously a specific type of devil, aren't they? They're taking Satan as Lucifer, fallen angel, etc.
Yeah. So with that one, obviously, you're kind of thinking, well, going back to the old witchcraft trials and thoughts of witches and that's what they used to think that witches were. Yeah. They were Satan worshippers. They had a pact with the devil. The devil gave them powers and all such. But there are people that actually do worship the Christian devil. And we wouldn't class them as witches. And I don't know if they would class themselves as witches either.
No, that's the same way I don't count most pagans as witches. Because most pagans aren't witches.
Well, pagans or neo-pagans, Chris?
Bit of both. Because it's one of those, isn't it? You don't need to be a witch to be Wiccan, and there are Wiccans that aren't witches, etc. So it works the same with all of them. So there are pagans that don't practice witchcraft. There are Satanists that don't practice witchcraft. There are Luciferians that don't practice witchcraft. What they do is worship, which is very different to witchcraft.
Because that's religious, essentially, if you're talking worship. Which is why you don't really like the term pagan, or wouldn't describe yourself as a pagan.
No. But that's because I like the clear distinction of what is religion and what is not, which I guess to a certain extent is why I don't mind the Church of Satan too much, on the basis that it's one, not a church, and two, not religious. But the whole point of it is to be antagonistic. The whole point is to kind of, say that you don't want to include these things, you're anti-organized religion, etc. Why then choose to call it a church? I think they're just trying to be funny. But you've
got the tax breaks, and the religious freedoms. If you're talking about and doing things as a church, particularly because I think this comes really from America, and that you've got quite a lot of freedom, and not to mention you just do it for the taxes. I mean, I thought about it. I thought about starting my own religion just for the tax breaks. I mean, come on, it is worth doing, isn't it?
I'm saying nothing.
Yeah.
Just in case you decide suddenly that there's going to be a new branch of the Church of Thoth. I'm
Well, the
not
Temple
going
of
to be
Thoth.
involved.
I mean, if push came to shove, and they ramped up the old corporation tax and such, we might just have to file under the Temple of Thoth. We'd put the old umbrella company and put all of the other things that we run underneath that, and then there goes our tax
community support.
Liabilities.
So it all depends on how well everybody did on the census, because they were all going for. There was all these major pushes online for everybody to put the word pagan.
Yeah.
In order to allow more kind of religious freedom in the right directions, because it's an empty box and you can type whatever you like. People forget that if you all type different things, it doesn't work that way. There needs to show numbers mean cash. So, but I'm assuming you didn't put pagan. Did you put no religion?
No,
like
of all of the witches that I've spoken to, not a single one of them put pagan. They either didn't answer it at all, or they put non-religious. So there'll be a lot of atheists that think there's a big rise in people that don't believe in the spirits and stuff, when actually a lot of witches that work with them on a daily basis just don't worship them.
Say,
so
I don't worship
put some sort of religion. Which is it's semantics at the end of the day. What you choose to identify as and what other people choose to label you as is one of those things, isn't it? And the word witch, much like Satanist, means something to the person that goes around calling themselves a Satanist, but very often it means something completely different
to the person
that labels someone Satanist.
Yeah.
I get labeled a Satanist, and I'm like, I wouldn't
That's
bother
because
with such
too many Christians.
minor Venusian spirits. Want to work with the big boys and girls. Don't want that thing.
No, I'm not. I can't say. Well, I don't like angels, so at the end of the day, I'm never going to get on particularly well with Lucifer, am I? So let's face it.
Well, I don't know. Is Lucifer a fallen angel, or is Lucifer a minor Roman god?
Oh, don't.
Or Lucifer,
are you going to go there? Are you?
I mean, depending on which documentary you watch on Satan or Lucifer or the devil or whatever, depending on which documentary you watch and who funded said documentary, will give you a different answer. Some people will say, well, Lucifer, it is Satan, blah, 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 blah. And then others will say, well, actually, it's Lucifer comes from the light bringer title, the morning star, all that kind of stuff. But I mean, where do you personally fall on the whole Satan polarization, alpha omega, goody baddie that the Christian paradigm kind of is built on?
Well, I suppose I end where exactly you expect me to, which is I consider Lucifer to be just another angel that didn't like the rules. But whereas the word Satan has such limited use in the actual Bible, I don't know how you can actually make such a big deal of the word Satan. And I think of the 3 or 4 times it's actually mentioned in the Bible, none of them are actually referring to the devil. So,
controversial.
So I have to be careful what else I say. But essentially,
I don't know. I think it depends which Bible you're talking about, though, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, I suppose.
I mean, which translation are you using? Because if it's not the old King James Bible, then it's
doesn't
not
count.
the right one, I'm afraid. You've probably got one of these new agey Bibles,
I'm tricky with the word Satan. I'm not very good with it, which is why I don't particularly take the word very seriously. If you want to talk about devil, that's different. Devil is a species, as opposed, it's a species rather than a specific entity. So, if you're starting to talk about devils, then I'm happy to have a conversation with people about devils, multiple of them, but not necessarily going to have that conversation about Satan. Happy to talk about Lucifer. Luciferians are quite interesting.
Oh, there's someone.
Sorry.
I'm streaming you guys. I'm talking live, but I got no viewers. But nice to see you guys doing your thing. Okay.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, it's from YouTube. YouTube.
Yeah.
Ah, yeah.
No.
For some reason, I don't know how this platform works, but the majority of people are watching on Facebook. But obviously, this also streams on YouTube.
On YouTube, yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. That might be the first person we've got from YouTube, because normally everyone comes up with Facebook, and everyone I can see, it's got the little Facebook logo, so I know that it's a watching from the Facebook. Oh, the miracles of modern technology.
It still baffles me. I'm not
technology of the devil, Chris?
Well, he's doing a good job if it is. Because he's keeping me baffled.
Windows into the devil. If it don't work, it's from the devil. If it does work, it's from Jesus. Isn't that how it works? That's what I've always thought. I thought that, from what I understand from religious education, from Christianity and Sunday school and such, if something good to happen, it's from the Jesus. If something bad to happen, it's from the devil. So there we go. So if you did an evocation, not invocation, evocation, you summoned up in front of you, yeah, Satan, the devil, and Lucifer, would one thing turn up, do you think, or would 3 different things turn up?
I think you'd have 3 different things there. I'm not going to lie.
Things. And would it be 3 different things, or would it be 100 different things? That's the question. Would it be like on American Gods TV show, where you got all of the different ones?
Where all the Jesuses.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I've never thought about it like that.
Go sometime.
So, yeah, let's do that. That sounds good. Should we do it live?
We could do it live. I don't know if we're allowed to do that on Fausty Witches. Do they allow evocations and such? I know that whenever we've done that sort of thing in the past, that the internet and the technology just screws up. So I don't know if that would work, but I'd be willing to give it a go. It would be quite amusing. So which one of them, out of the Jesus, Lucifer, and Satan, which ones are tulpas and which ones started off being an actual thing?
See, I knew you were going to go.
The audience.
I assume you're going to go there. One, I'd like to know what Jonas's answer to that question is, to see actually whether or not he has a decision, he or she. I'm assuming he, but I don't like to assume. Is thinking we should go with, but essentially, yeah, I think the only one. Lucifer, the devil, and
so Lucifer, the so-say fallen angel.
So I'd expect to get an angel there.
Is it a tulpa? Satan, angel, tulpa.
Satan, tulpa at the best, surely.
I'm thinking Satan would be a tulpa, because there's too much put in that word. There's kind of energy flowed in that direction, but no real kind of character that kind of.
And bearing in mind, most of the people, particularly the Church of Satan, don't believe in him being an entity. He, she, it being an entity. So they're not pushing energy in it in a direction that says, I want to have a relationship with you. They're a symbol. So in which case that would be...
It's coming from the Christians, it would be.
It would be coming from the Christians, the ones that believe in Satan. If they're calling it Satan, devil, or Lucifer, would be kind of, what are they forcing? So the question would be, would there be one version of Lucifer that is Lucifer, and how many others are just tulpas?
Well, I mean, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because if you think of it in terms of, well, if Satan's a tulpa, and Satan's not really being fed by the tulpa that is Satan, isn't really being fed by the Satan worshippers, because they're all atheists, Actually,
They've got no control over
the
what he
Christians
appears
that
as.
would be feeding it. So the people that are scared and hate him the most are the people that are keeping him going. Now there's some next level irony in that. I think we got a comment. You guys want to be directed to some official Illuminati documents? We would love to be directed to some official Illuminati documents. There is a link. There is some legit Illuminati documents. That is so cool. Chris, have you leaked any Illuminati documents?
I haven't leaked anything. It wasn't me.
At that meeting, you were specifically told to burn all of the documents. You know, you're the minute taker. What are you going? What are you doing? I know we still do things old school, where we've got a child bleeding in the corner. You dab your quill in and you do the writing, because we can't trust Bill Gates. We can't trust the computer.
No, you can't trust Bill Gates.
We had to get rid of Steve Jobs.
Because exactly that is what happens. You get people leaking it online.
Yeah. We had to get rid of Steve Jobs because his Apple machine was just too good. But yeah, I mean, come on, Chris. You're in charge of documents. We tell you the ones you're supposed to leak. It's always the ones that involve the celebrities, right? Okay?
Obviously.
Remember.
Because that's good for business.
Yeah. So, someone's actually just joined. Jane's just joined, and she says, I've just joined. What's the subject? So, Chris, do you want to sum up everything we've basically just spoken about?
So if you go up there to the title, we're talking about Satanists today. So how to spot one. Obviously, we were talking about the different kinds of Satanism. So, you know, going from the Anton LaVey end, you know, dancing dressed as the devil, throwing parties for people. Then obviously the atheists with the Church of Satan, and obviously then the Luciferianism, and that being Lucifer as an entity separate. So yeah, and then we were discussing more so about which what if we were to have the devil, Lucifer, and Satan round for tea. We were trying to figure out how many people would we actually have.
We talked about an evocation. So if we were to summon, if we were to summon Satan,
that's a tea party, though, right?
And Lucifer, we could have tea if you want as well. We can have a tea party and do it. You summon Lucifer, Satan, and the devil. If you did that and summoned all three, would three different things show up? Tell us in the comments what your thoughts are. Would one thing show up? Would nothing show up? Or would three or more things show up? What are your thoughts? Because we're thinking that when it comes to old Satan, Satan's more of a tulpa. Lucifer, you're going on actual fallen angel.
I'm going with actual fallen angel. I'm going for there.
But what about the devil? Because we're talking really devils. When we think of devils, we think of a species.
Again, it's a species like jinn, yeah, or angel.
Yeah. So devils.
They're a species.
So what would devils be? What are they?
Well, I don't think you'd get the folk devil there, would you? You'd be like, I'm not coming to that party with those people. So I don't know what kind of devil you'd get. I reckon you get some kind of crossroads demon, wouldn't you?
What, you mean some sort of demon? You're
thinking
demons and devils?
Yeah.
You're thinking demons are basically just another word for devils?
No, not strictly. Because obviously then you go down with me splitting the word demon from daemon. So be very careful what you ask me there.
Yeah, well, I know that's quite triggering, isn't it? Demons and daemons.
Yeah, because that sets me off. So don't set me off with that one, because we'll end up in a completely different chat.
As witches, we don't worship the Christian devil, but we do the horned god. Not necessarily correct, because not all witches are pagan, so not all witches worship at all, and not all witches worship the horned god. Some might work with the Baphomet, some might work with the horned god, some might work with a duality, but as we also kind of discussed a bit from our personal backgrounds, we wouldn't consider ourselves religious, because we work with spirits all the time.
And deities all the time.
And deities, lots of different ones, lots of different types. But we don't worship them. So we would put the distinction between if you worship more religion, if you just work with them like you work with the old plumber down the road,
Yeah.
then, you know, that's a little bit different. We'd normally make that distinction. But that's mainly, and we talked a little bit about the census as well, and talking about what you're
Oh yeah,
classing
we
yourself
did.
as. But no,
Yes.
I am really interested actually now, because I've never really thought about it. What would happen if you summoned all three of those up at the same time?
I think you'd have an interesting situation, is all I'm going to say. The question would be for me, which is, would any of them try to convince you? So obviously, a big part of the mythology of Satan, Lucifer, the devil, the one that links them all is the Great Deceiver, or the major anarchist. So you kind of like, would those entities try and convince you, or which one was the correct which one had we summoned correctly? So it'd be interesting. And like you said, I wonder how many people would turn up, because obviously if Satan is 100 different tulpas all over, then how many of them would actually try and turn up to the party, or would they group together and send a delegate?
Yeah.
So
have you ever worked with either Satan, Lucifer, you know, any of the above, or come into contact with that kind of an energy at all? Really?
I've worked with people who do.
Right.
While I was at school, I knew a lot of people. I knew surprisingly a lot of people that were Luciferians, and kind of several
Did you go to some sort
generations.
of creepy satanic school though? Was that the reason why? Did you go to like what is it they call it on Sabrina, the Academy of Unseen Arts or something? Because I can
No,
imagine you would.
but I had two schools. Is that what
Yeah.
that's what you're thinking? Are you creating your own mythology around me now? Are you?
Well, I mean, we
The
don't know
school I
where you
went to in my
necessarily
dreams
came
was very
from.
different. I was too busy designing school schematics. Let's face it. I wasn't busy going to go and find one. I was inventing one at the time. But yeah, so for me that was different. So I knew a couple of Luciferians when I was at school, and actually one of them in particular, she was amazing, very talented witch actually, from a line of them, so 2 or 3 generations of Luciferians actually, which was interesting. So she'd been brought up in a Luciferian household, so that was very different. Whereas me, I so I struggled, but we had an arrangement, let's say, and we would agree to disagree on a lot of things. But yeah, in terms of Satanists, I've never really met any. Like,
Didn't you
not
curse her
like.
boyfriend?
Um,
Was that the one? Or was that a different one? I knew you cursed someone's Satanist boyfriend once.
yeah, but he would have fitted into the category of Satanist, not
Okay.
Luciferian. So he liked to look and dress like one, and liked to tell me that Satan wasn't a real thing, etc. So yes, I may have. Oh, you just like dropping me in shit, don't you, today?
Of course I do.
Um, so yeah, so I may have tied his bloodline to someone or other for a few generations. That's all. It was my teens. You do things like that, don't you? You've
I
done worse
think
things, let's face it.
they do say with great power comes great responsibility, and when you're a young witch coming into your power for the first time, it only takes one muggle or mundane to piss you off, and then you snap your fingers and something bad happens to them. I mean, we've all
And
done it. At the end of the
yeah,
day, we've all done really, or at least we have it. Thought pretty much everyone we work with has got some story where they lost a little bit of control, they lost their temper, and they might have screwed up someone really badly using magic. But I mean, it's just what it is at the end of the day, isn't it? Humans are
the
very
really cool
delicate
thing,
creatures.
is she used to send me letters.
Right.
Which, bearing in mind, we were digital kids by that point. You know, we all grew up with computers, so the receiving mail was always beautiful. But she used to write me letters in like rhyming couplets and things. It was they were cool. They were really cool. At least it was a very different flavour for me back then. Whereas, yeah, more in terms of like traditional Anton LaVey kind of Satanists, I haven't met many. Have you ever had any Satanist clients?
No, I haven't had any. I haven't had any Satanist clients. I've had some Christian clients that were so scared of the devil that, like we talked about
Yeah,
at the top, that they end up
understandably.
having something manifest, or
Yeah,
more than likely, they attract the attention of something that just likes to put a little mask on because they know, or it seems to understand, I feed on fear, you're scared of this devil thing, I'm going to make myself look like what you're scared of to make you even more scared. So that does happen. But those sort of entities are quite easy to get rid of. So I've never really met, you know, there is kind of that duality in it, because I think when you get deep into magic, witchcraft, the occult, whatever, you start to realize that the whole duality thing's not really a thing, and that actually everything's a little bit more grey.
yeah.
You know,
Everything's a shade of grey. We don't deal in white and black.
There's ideas of the alpha and the omega and polarity, but actually that's just this universe. So it gets a little bit more complicated the further outside you go, because things aren't necessarily based on the same principles and rules. And people get too obsessed with the kind of polarity thing. And then it's when people kind of map morality and ethics on that kind of polarity that is it's a little bit iffy, and it doesn't really serve much of a purpose at the end of the day either. So it is what it is. I mean, some people will get comfort from the thoughts that, well, there are some things that are good and some things that are bad, and if you do the bad thing, then something bad will happen to you because that's just. But as we know, that's not really the case. Because a lot of the things, pretty much all of the powerful things out there, they simply do not care. You could literally destroy this entire universe, and the big bad things out there would not care. They wouldn't care in the slightest. What would care is the local things. And if you're powerful enough to destroy a universe, those local things aren't going to be a problem for you. So ultimately, when it comes to witchcraft, you're really talking about the acquisition of knowledge and power, I think. And again, that's what makes it different from religion. And again, there's lots of different witches, lots of different people that call themselves witches, lots of different people that label others as witches. So you can't, I mean, the word is essentially almost pointless, because bearing in mind we use words to express concepts and such. Well, expressing the concept of a witch is one of those words that we kind of nowadays, we abandon it naturally. We don't call ourselves a witch. We call ourselves a traditional witch. We call ourselves a hedge witch, because the word witch means so much. You know, is the word Satanist kind of getting like that? Because a lot of everyday people kind of think, well, you're a Satanist, you probably don't actually believe, because all of the people that go online, they all say about Satanism's not even a thing, and they're all Satanists, you know? So it's like, the word witch is more broad, isn't it? But the word Satanist has still got that kind of you know.
It comes, like I say, it comes down to kind of when it gets beyond the polarity part, doesn't it? Of yes or no. Kind of going, well, there's this type of Satanist and that type of Satanist. You're starting to then kind of split hairs into different camps. So, but yeah, it's an interesting one. Because it's one of those that it's still too new. The words, I guess, is still too new at what they actually apply to. But yeah, no doubt it'll be another one of those words that kind of means too much in the future, and they'll have to find a way to justify it. So, you know, to be fair, we kind of already did that today by separating Satanists that might call themselves Satanists that are actually Luciferian, and you know, where the word has more power right now because it means something that is antagonist, And while that still has that you know, that tie to this kind of anti-religion kind of part movement, because at the end of the day, that's what Satanism, you know, in the true sense of where the word comes from, you know, Satanism comes from, is atheism, and is, you know, a political movement. So, you know, once you kind of separate that and go, actually, it's got nothing to do with the worship of the devil or Satan or any other of those names, there's no worship in it at all, it then started to muddy the water. Hence why kind of, you know, we have the trouble with the word pagan a lot of the time, is for exactly that. It's now so big and common a term that it's used in a particular way. So obviously me, as a classicist, I still think of pagan as country bumpkin.
Yeah, I do
so
as well.
That's what that word means to me. So it kind of like, well, no, I'm from, you know, the edge of a city, so I'm not a country bumpkin. But yeah, is that kind of, you know, it's the slow folk over there that aren't up to the latest. Anyway, spotting a Satanist, part of the reason we were talking about spotting a Satanist wasn't so you could point them out in a crowd, was to kind of talk about some of the kind of myths, and kind of the intricacies, of kind of what often gets thrown around as, oh, well, they must be Satanists. So I think the big one for that is the pentagram, and I think we probably should talk about that a little
pentagram, bit. Isn't it?
Yeah,
that's what they don't like.
So
it used to be everyone was scared of the pentagram, and then people started learning, oh, well, that's just some sort of happy symbol, that's the good one, but the inverted one, that's the bad one. And then more and more people have cottoned on to the fact that actually it's not really bad, it just is a polarity shift.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you're talking aesthetic, and you did, like you said about a crowd, if you had a crowd of people milling about at a concert, say you had a Black Sabbath concert.
Yeah, most of them are going to be wearing them.
You've got the ones that wear a lot of black and have got not just studs in their ears, but holes going through their ears, and a lot of black and heavy metal kind of looking. You've got those sorts of people that would be looking like your stereotypical Satanist, but they're just rock fans. Then you've got your Church of Satan type Satanists, which they're political activists, but they don't actually believe in Satan. And they might have a little bit of a look at them. They might rock the controversial kind of stuff, but at the same time, they might be a little bit more hippie-ish. And then you've got the little old man and lady at the back that just look like they wandered into the concert not knowing what's going on. And they're actually the baby drinking blood. Creepy people.
They're actually on the prowl for a victim.
Yeah, so, they're on the prowl for a victim. And then you've got the things that kind of, so they're the kind of three types. You've got the aesthetic, they just want to look like it. You've got the political activism, using it as a means to kind of make a point. And then you've got the actual, essentially, devil worshippers or Satan worshippers, which are, there's less of those, funnily enough, than the others. And then there's a strange kind of magical practitioners that will get thrown into that. So there's, for example, I think it's not really a secret society, but it's more of a movement called, I think it was called the Order of Nine Angles, which is kind of almost Luciferian-y. It's kind of that, what they say, left-hand path, that kind of, you know, dark arts kind of a vibe. But it's not really a secret society. It's a movement and a collection of people that seem to all absolutely dislike each other and slate each other constantly, but they're all apparently super powerful dark magicians and such. But they wouldn't really, you know, whether you class them as Satanists, whether you don't class them as Satanists, some of them might play up to that, some of them might, but they're actually a collection of people that are working on magical practices, but seem to get thrown into that kind of a category. And it's all quite interesting, because when you look, like we've talked and laughed before and cried sometimes, just how an embarrassment it is when you watch some of these paranormal TV shows and they go in some place that's supposedly haunted, and then there's some half-burnt black candles and a Ouija board on the floor, and then a pentagram drawn in salt or something, and they say, oh, this is Satanism, this is satanic black witchcraft or something like that, when actually, how are you coming to that conclusion? Are you coming to that conclusion based on a load of stereotypes of there's a lot of black involved,
the aesthetic,
there's a pentagram and that kind of thing? Or are you coming from the perspective of you're trying to sensationalize it because the majority of people that watch paranormal TV programs come from some sort of Christianized background? A lot of them are actually Christians, still Christians.
Well, spiritualism is still a really big movement.
Yeah,
so
they like that kind of duality, and there's a baddie, and that's all mysterious and back, and there's always got to be a baddie, and the baddie's got to have a black candle type thing. Because I never ever see any actual witches on these programs, and I never really see any actual witchcraft happening on the programs either, really.
But then I suppose they try to separate themselves a lot of the time from to make it more scientific. It's that extension of is it the Fox sisters? I always say that wrong.
Yeah, they were
sisters. They're spiritualists, and that kind of testing that leads on beyond that of we've got to prove this isn't a hoax all the time. So that it's a constant having to prove, and therefore, and witches complicate that matter, don't they? Because witches then obviously, are going to be less likely for them to measure it in the same way. But we can get to that anyway. I just thought Jane made an interesting point when we were talking about categorizing and talking about how words kind of take on this new life. She mentioned another one that we get a lot, that you hear a lot of people that call themselves chaos magicians or talk about chaos magic. And it's another one of those buzzwords now, isn't it?
Because it kind of gets labelled as a magical system, but it's not so much a magical system as an approach, because chaos magic at its fundamental core is not so much suspending your disbelief, it's actually throwing yourself into a belief for a set period of time. But if you get a chaos magic book, well, I think it might have been Peter Carroll, might be one of the people that writes those kind of books.
Oh, yeah, possibly.
Possibly, I think. Don't quote me on that one.
No, I wouldn't.
But you'll see a lot of these things that are kind of like sigil magic, this, that. They're basic kind of techniques that you will be able to see mirrored in a lot of other magical systems, but they take the religious symbology out of it. They take the kind of background out of it. It's just like a stripped down system.
Yeah. But it comes from that kind of labeling that you were talking about before, which is well, what kind of witch are you? So a lot of it comes down to that. Well, I'm not any of those kind of witches. Oh, well, I'm chaos magician, which basically means that you'll use a specific set of tools, a certain approach for a set period of time, and then can go off in another direction and use a different kind of technique in a different for a fixed. They're more it's experimental, isn't it? Into the point that there is no fixed pathway, except for during the experiment that you are currently working on. And that's where they kind of mix that word up with eclectic is the other one you hear a lot of.
Yeah.
So
I do find when we teach, obviously, that coming from different people's backgrounds, they gravitate and they get on better with certain types of magical systems than others. For your atheist scientist type, chaos magic seems to be something that they gravitate towards and that they excel at quickly because they kind of come from the approach of, well, I don't believe in magic, I want to give it a go, and I don't know where to start, so I'm just going to dive in head first into something and see if it works. And that's essentially what you're talking about when you're talking about chaos magic. And then you take what works and then add it. The problem is that a lot of these magical systems, whether it would be religions or certain systems that come out of cultures and that, they're all half finished, half baked, because they've never come up against every possibility. So it's really supposed to give you a foundation to work and build on, a way of structuring your thoughts, and ideas and things, that you're supposed to take that and grow and expand it. The problems come, it's no different really than martial arts.
Yeah.
Because you'll find things, martial arts systems are like that. They come from a certain part of the world and they become a cultural kind of thing. They never evolve and then get left behind because they're not capable of defending against new things that come in and new styles that come in. So they just get thrown aside. But when it comes to magical systems, that's something we see a lot, is that they try to be a purist within their magical system and never change it. And they come up against an obstacle they can't overcome, because you need to overcome it by growing and expanding your current knowledge and power. And how we've gotten onto this from discussing Satanists and Satanism and that, I'm not entirely sure. But
well, it's coming down to recognizing, and that's the thing. And talking about recognition, how to spot a Satanist. It wasn't a let's talk about Satanism. It was how do you spot a Satanist? So the best way to spot something is to look around at what's different from the thing you're trying to spot. You know, if you're trying to find a little robin redbreast, you're going to hope that it's against something bright green or a white surface so it can spot it quicker. So, you know, anyway, that was my justification for our tangents. But let's face it, that's what people watch us for, is the tangents.
It's the tangents where all the golden nuggets come from, I think. And
yeah, you're loving that phrase today, aren't you? Golden nuggets.
Well, when we did the podcast, the No Holds
Do you want some
Barred
cereal or
Witchcraft
something?
Podcast, hashtag No Holds Barred Witchcraft Podcast. You've got to listen, people. You've got to listen. It's pure gold. Golden nuggets. A lot of golden nuggets you get from these occult books. We just lay them all out there on the No Holds Barred Witchcraft Podcast. Have I plugged the No Holds Barred Witchcraft Podcast enough, Chris?
I think so.
Or do I need to write a little banner or something? Because I can do that now.
Oh yeah, I'm sure you could actually. But no, I think most people in here will be more likely to be interested in the Witchcraft Live, which is a lot more beginners.
Yeah, but they can
just kind of
look.
Well, they can. Right. They can have something to aspire to.
No Holds Barred Witchcraft Podcast. Got to listen to it. Get it on YouTube it. Get it from iTunes. Get it from Spotify. That's our show, Chris.
Yeah, that's what Jonas. That's what Jonas needs to be sharing. Is when those get launched every Thursday.
When we started that monstrosity, who'd have thought it would have taken off as much as it did?
Well, I know. Who thought that the people would like listening to us, to be honest, talk rubbish for hours? Sorry, golden nuggets.
We do give away a lot of stuff. We gave away a lot of stuff about Aleister Crowley and all that Thelemic crap. Thelema. Yeah. Aleister Crowley, Thelema. Sounds like phlegm, I know, and that's the kind of taste that it gives me in my mouth. That's the kind
of reading that we gave of him, to be honest.
So was the Beast 666 old Aleister Crowley, would he be classed as a Satanist or would he be a poser?
Well, there are some that argue that Anton LaVey was kind of mirroring some of his ideas with the Church of Thelema, that kind of commune or whatever you want to call it.
Oh, the
you can't really call it a church, can you?
Yeah, the one he got kicked out from.
Yeah, that one.
Got kicked out of the country.
So you've got the Anton LaVey's kind of commune equivalent. Started off, then became a bit more of when it hit off as a political movement. But there is that kind of, that Anton LaVey took a bit of, what's the word? Inspiration from his Thelema kind of, whatchamacallit.
Well, I mean, it can be a great. Some of these kind of lodges, particularly with the Church of Satan, can be really great from a marketing perspective, but also from money. Because you make the joke about if you really want to be rich, make your own religion. But the thing about Satanism and calling yourself a Satanist is it's one of those words, those buzzwords that polarizes people. So I know that there have been people that literally pay the however much it is to join the Church of Satan to get the little red card that says you're a member. They pay that money just to get that card, just to show their Christian friends and scare them. They have no interest in the other stuff. They just do it for kind of shits and giggles, essentially.
Mm.
And then you've got to put it to these people that, you know, the marketing is the perfect word for marketing because it's so polarizing. But there we go. Oh, we got some comments and such. L. Ron Hubbard, yeah, L. Ron Hubbard from Scientology. The science fiction writer that decided to make his own religion up, which was very science fiction-y, and people fell for it. But there we go.
Definitely.
I don't know. Would you ever start some sort of creepy cult? I know you were talking about building that little commune thing in Wales, but I don't know if we're allowed to talk about that.
Well, that's not a commune. You can't use it as a word, commune.
Well, it's some sort of cult. As soon as I mentioned it to Lee, who likes to, you know, he is basically the person that turned around and said, "Oh, was it Osho? Osho is like, obviously it ended terribly badly, the kind of Osho cult thing. But he turned around and said, I wish I was there." That's like, but you know how it all ended and you know how bad it was. It's like, yeah, I'm really sad that I missed out on that. I mean, who actually thinks like that, you know? But as soon as I mentioned about buying a couple of cabins in Wales and, you know, doing a few magical rituals and
creating
stuff,
ritual spaces, like, etc.
You and Chris are going to start a cult, aren't you? I can see it. I can see in 10 years' time you're going to have this beautiful utopia, and then it's all going to go south like they always do.
I don't think either of us are committed enough to creating a cult. I think that's the problem.
I don't like the sycophants. That's the thing.
No. So we just wouldn't be able to cope with it. I don't think we could cope with people telling us they love us all the time.
Yeah, I struggle with that, I have to say. The sycophants, they just don't do it for me. I find them annoying. I mean, I know they could possibly have their uses and such, but yeah, it is what it is at the end of the day. So, well,
the only thing you can think of is all that monies.
All the monies,
you know, that the Scientologists make. But
we as witches, we can just conjure the monies
up.
If you can't conjure the monies up, you're not doing the magic right. You need to.
Yes, that is true.
You need to learn some slightly more better magics, I think, because there's a popular one, isn't there? A lot of these, I've hit a block, I can't do this, or why aren't all witches rich and such. Well, witches, if they're any good, are as rich as they want to be, because when you've got power to twiddle with the universe, and given that money doesn't actually exist, it's not an actual thing, it's one of the easiest things to conjure or manifest, because it's not even real in the first place. But don't get me started in the old
No.
But there we go. So yeah, cults and the intelligence agencies, what's the connection? Chris, what's the connection between cults and intelligence agencies? Because I think you need to explain the word cult first, because there's a lot of connotations to that. Yes.
Well, again, it's another one of those words where I would take the classical route to that, wouldn't I? Which would be completely different to what you're talking about.
So the classical, old-fashioned, original, ancient kind of cult word. What's that? And then comparing that to nowadays.
So traditionally, when I would think of cult, I would think of, supporting acts to a deity. So it would be the entire group that honor and worship a particular deity. So from, what they try and create down in Glastonbury and failed horrifically, that sort of thing. But the original, so they would be the ones responsible for looking after. Obviously nowadays we would think more of either a cult following. So we would be talking about a group that is obsessed with a particular item, clothing, show, whatever, that can be idolized, anything that can be idolized. Modern cults tend to be those that follow a particular charismatic person.
They want to give their power over to someone or something else. But...
So, and in that process, they are all kind of, feeding a particular idol. And then obviously the connection. So we were talking about what's the connection between those cults and intelligence agencies.
Apparently, that's what Jonas Trips wants to know. The connection between the cults and the intelligence agencies. What's the connection?
Well, if we were American, we would start talking about how the intelligence agencies create cults as experiments
we can't
in
go on
order
that. We'll be
to
cut off. We'll be cut off, Chris. You know, when we signed that NDA when we joined the Illuminati, we're not supposed to discuss things like that, apart from in a comic way. You know,
would be talking about social experiments.
I don't know how you think about this, but going back to cults and the definition of cults and that,
Coca-Cola.
when you've got, think of it, the ancient type of cult and the modern type of cult, and now think celebrities. So in the ancient type of cult, you've got a god or goddess. Let's take I don't know, Madonna. Yeah, Madonna is the goddess. And then you've got the traditional cult of that's her posse. You've got the publicist, you've got the hair and makeup person, you've got the PR person, you've got this, that. Her people that work for her, that's her cult. Swing to the modern times, and it's more like the groupies and the fans that are screaming out loud. They're wanting to grab her as she walks past, you know? It's kind of the difference. You've got one that's working as a team to do the work of that goddess.
A great work.
Whatever. And then you've got modern times, which is a case of, let me just give you all of my power. Let me do whatever, you know, walk on top of me like I'm a rug on the floor type thing. Use me as a footstool. I think that's kind of, people kind of get that.
I'll blame Jesus. I'll blame Jesus. So they all started going for celebrity after him.
Yeah, Jesus.
So, you know, he's the original celebrity.
When you're talking cult and religion, really, a religion is just a cult where the founder's dead, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because Scientology was like a cult thing, and then L. Ron Hubbard died, and then it became a religion. And then, you know, I mean, Christianity, you could kind of be a little iffy because it depends on whether he was a real thing or not. You know, is Jesus real?
Depending on which denomination.
So it's like, did it go from being a cult to a religion? You know, all these guys and that travelled around with him, this little cult. Was that started? Was that the thing that turned into a religion? Or was it the fact that you've got a deaf religion, deaf cult that they just made up, essentially? I don't know. Too rich for my blood. I don't want to get people too upset that work and believe with and work with the Jesus.
One for Jonas,
maybe
though.
We should do that. Maybe we should have a nice afternoon. I think in Saturday and Sunday, Saturday, the day of Saturn, we summon up the devil and Satan and Lucifer all at the same time and see what happens, right? And then I think on the Sunday, day of the sun, the Sabbath, we summon up white Jesus, black Jesus, and Chinese Jesus and see what happens. We could have a wonderful bank holiday weekend, couldn't we?
We could actually.
It'd
be a very balanced one.
Yeah, that'd be brilliant. So we haven't got that long left. We got like 2 minutes. So in the last 2 minutes, Jonas Trips from the YouTubes has said, what does it mean to be an Illuminatus?
That would be the singular of Illuminati.
So if you're in the Illuminati, you're an Illuminatus, right? If you are, I don't know, what's another equivalent of that?
Another equivalent of what?
My mind's gone a blank.
We're talking Freemasons and stuff, or you're talking equivalent to...
No, I was talking everyday language and that.
Oh, okay. So would it be you going back to your cult? You're going back to your followers of an ideal. The bit that they won't be aware of, and well, he probably will because he clearly likes them a lot. But the echelons, we may have to do one of these on one of these on cults and black lodges and such. Maybe we need to do one of these on
we are supposed to be
secret
doing
societies.
A podcast. We're supposed to be doing a podcast on secret societies and that, aren't we? I know at some point. But the last question is, what is illumination? So I think he wants to understand the secrets of the Illuminati. So basically, the secrets of the Illuminati.
If you're tired of all the neo-pagan claptrap that's on the internet and want to see some real witchcraft, please subscribe to the Thoth TV YouTube channel. If you really want to kick things up a notch, try clicking the No Holds Barred podcast link.